Hello, hello, good morning, and welcome to another episode of Journey to SEA 2024. This is Shelley-Ann Edwards Barron, your creative writing specialist, here to help you understand report writing and narrative writing so that you can truly support your children at home or your students in the classroom. Um, I'm a little bit excited today because I had an experience over the weekend that really sort of, warmed my heart. And I want to just take a couple of minutes to share what happened because I know I say this a lot, but when you comment and post and ask your questions, it really helps me understand that what I'm doing is valuable. And I know I've heard it before, but sometimes, talking to a screen, not having anybody here to give feedback immediately. Sometimes, I wonder, okay, is anybody hearing? Is anybody, really getting the help? Am I sharing it effectively? So I do have questions. So for those of you who take the time to comment on the posts, join the lives, look at the replays, send me messages, thank you so very, very much. Um, this weekend, I had the privilege of meeting a parent, and it was just so funny how the whole thing happened. I was walking into the organization, she was walking out, and she looked at me, and I saw her look at me, but then I thought, you know, uh, she probably just was just wondering, where she knew me or something. And she went her way, and I went mine. But as I walked in, I she came back and she stopped me and she said, she asked me if I was a counselor, but so she sort of, I guess, mistook where she knew me from. So we spent a little time trying to figure it out. And then she said, "Yes, you're the lady who does the creative writing live in one of those Facebook groups." And so we had a conversation from that. We ended up speaking for probably close to an hour. I went there to get something with my husband and kids, and they did the shopping, and I was just there chatting. But it was a really heartfelt moment, and I won't give you all the details because that's not what we're here for. But I do want to say a couple of things about that experience. Um, what she highlighted to me, so I asked her, I said, is the were the lives helpful? Because her children did SEA this year, and so they're now in Form 1. And so she said, yes, the lives were very helpful, especially since the way I presented the lives, I spoke to parents and really empowered parents and teachers to support children. And that really stood out to me because that was the intention. That is the intention. That's why I'm here, because I understand that, sometimes what has to be done, but then you're not sure how to do it. And then sometimes you know what the outcome should be, but you don't know what has to be done. And all along the way, it's really a matter of getting that comfort and confidence with checking in with your children, checking in on what they're doing, and knowing what works and what doesn't work so that you can really effectively support them at home. I don't have any statistics in my mind right now, but research has been done, and I know in SEA Peacefield, we say it all the time. The children and the students that do extremely well get support in their journey, and they get that support from teachers, yes, but they also get that support primarily at home. So the ability to support your child at home, whether you're a parent, an auntie, uncle, grandparent, cousin, big sister, big brother, that ability to support your child at home, the student at home, is going to make a huge difference in their lives. We're all in this world trying to get things done, and there's a big deal about community. In business, we talk about networking. In life, we talk about the home community, the village. And so having that support makes a huge difference in how difficult the road is for someone as they journey toward their own success. So that experience this weekend was really awesome, and it kind of opened my mind to what I need to continue doing and how I need to show up and present myself. So please, like I said, keep sending the messages, the encouragement, because sometimes I get caught up in the work itself and I do need the reminder, and the reminders really help that the reason I'm doing this and the reason I started in the first place is because as a parent, I struggled and it took me some time figuring it out. So my agenda really is to help parents as much as possible to support their children with more confidence than you might normally, especially with creative writing, because for some reason, I mean, even though I love it and I teach it, I had some challenges. So I could imagine how it could be for people who don't love it and don't teach it on a regular basis. Um, it can be intimidating. And so I understand that. So that's why I'm here. And so let me kind of get into it kind of quickly. So if this is your first live and you're new to it, because I do in the SEA Peacefield group, we have people joining every week. So just in case this is the first time you're hearing about the lives and you're checking in, I do need to keep reminding. I forgot to put a reminder in the group yesterday. I'm gonna have to schedule that out. But my name, I said before, Miss Shelly Ann Edwards Barron, creative writing specialist. That's what I do. And what I work with, especially for young students, is something called multisensory learning. And multisensory learning is all about engaging students through as many senses as possible in the creative writing classroom. Now we know about the multisensory learning when it comes to math. You know, we have all these manipulatives and we do all kinds of fun and interesting things in math and science, etc. But when it comes to creative writing, we kind of believe that because we're dealing with words that that's what we should focus on, just the words. But the real truth behind writing is that you really have to start with the ideas. If you don't have an idea to share, you could be able to regurgitate a dictionary, but if you don't have an idea to share, that's going to really create a problem for you. So we always start with the ideas, but then once we have the ideas, we need the skills to share them properly. So that's what we're working on, and specifically with report writing and narrative writing as students prepare for SEA. In this incarnation, we're working toward SEA 2024. And a couple weeks ago, a parent messaged me and asked me if I could include some information about comprehension as well. So I've decided to add in a few minutes on comprehension at the end. So if you're dealing with any challenges with comprehension, then you might want to stick around to the end. The session I aim to end at 12. But because of my little story this morning, I might go over 12, like maybe a few minutes, but we'll see how it goes today. And let's see, today for the comprehension, I'm touching on graphics and how to approach graphics because, we might think that it's simple, just learn the different styles of the comprehension, questions, and so on. But each type of comprehension requires a unique approach. And that is one of the reasons why you have those three types of comprehension at the end of the ELA exam, right? That's the English Language Arts exam. There's a reason because approaching poetry is different from approaching nonfiction and fiction passages, and those approaches are also different from the way you would tackle a graphic. So we're going to be talking about that later on. But let's get into it. We're looking at, let's see, we're covering report writing first, as I usually do, and then we're going to narratives. So let's see what is on the agenda for reports, and we are dealing with describing this situation. All right. So we're at paragraph 3, right? Paragraph 3, describing the situation. And again, for those of you who are new, we're following a schedule that allows us to focus in detail on different aspects of the report writing and the narrative writing. If you don't have a schedule and you're wondering where you can get one, you can get one at my website. It's wordcoach.com. I'm going to put a link there for you. You can, get a copy of the schedule so that you can follow along so you know what's coming, as well as if you missed episodes, especially if you're starting new and you've missed episodes, what you might want to do is to go back and pay attention to the episodes that came before. So that is something that you might consider. And so there's an episode list on the website when you go and you find Journey to SEA 2024. So that's the address there. And what you'd be able to do is to like go through when you download the schedule, you can go through which ones you think are useful. Each episode is about an hour. The longest one I think was about an hour and a half, and that was when I first introduced the narratives, which is like about the comprehension, which is about 2 weeks ago. So you can go back, review, double check. The videos are all going to be up until the exam, and then I'll probably take them down as we begin Journey to SCA 2025. So they're there for you to review and so on. But today, like I said, we're dealing with describing the situation. Now, this is paragraph 3. We're working with the 5 paragraph structure. And so we began with the summary introduction, which is paragraph 1. Then we looked at how to define and describe and document the paragraph 2, which we're calling what happened before. And that has to do with what's leading up to the situation. And so point at the point we're at now, which is describing the situation, is really, I would say, the main part of the report. And so it's important that students are able to recognize what that main situation is so that they can focus on that information into paragraph 3. Now, that means, and I'm sort of stepping back a little bit, that means that students should be able to do a couple of things before they begin working on their details. And those things are, I'm going to put them on the screen so that you can see them. Um, Even before you begin, what you need to do is to identify type of report, determine involvement, and yeah, so I think those two pretty much analyze the report, and that's going to make a difference. So when you identify the type, so okay, let me put 3 things in because the third thing actually is um identify main situation, right? And there's a reason I'm sort of pausing and backing up to talk about this, because being able to follow the 5 point structure allows students to kind of like organize their ideas and their thoughts. And remember, I said we're starting with the ideas. So, writing an excellent report, yes, you need the skills and the know how, but you also need to know what you're going to be talking about. What are the ideas that you're going to share? And being able to identify the type of report. And remember, there are 6 of them. Yes, I have to get used to saying 6 because I generally say 5 because of what the 6th one is. But let me just say 6 straight up: incident, accident, event, competition, activity, and then natural disasters. So these are the 6. And depending on what type of report you're working with, that main situation that goes into paragraph 3 would obviously be different. So if it's a competition, then those, your paragraph 2, 3, and 4 are going to be organized differently from if it's an incident. And so the two that are, I guess, most obvious would be incident and accident. And I think students are quite capable of recognizing, okay, what's the main part of this situation in an incident, or what's the main part of a situation in an accident. So, if it's a vehicular accident, the main part would be when the cars collided. If it's an incident, let's say a bullying incident, the main part of the situation would be, what the bully did step by step. If it's an event and the event is like a presentation, then the speaker's words would be the main part of the event. So you'd have the preliminaries where you introduce the speaker, say what the speaker is there for, etc., etc., and then you get into the main part. The person is now at the podium speaking, and there would be the main presentation. If it's actually an event that has multiple presentations, they you'd sort of like divide it into three groups. You know, let's say there are eight um let's say it's a concert, for example, and you have eight performances. So you would have, you break that up. So, the beginning performances, and then the middle performances, and then the ending performances. So paragraphs two, three, four, that's how you would break it up like that. So that's how you would end up with determining what goes into that paragraph three. If it's like a concert where you have other acts but like a main feature act, because most concerts do that. So even if you have a concert where you have one performer who's the headline performer, there would be preliminary acts to warm up the crowd, and then you have the main performer, and then, well, you have the end of the concert. So that's how you could work it out. If it is an activity, then the main part of the activity where you get the most action and involvement, that's what would go in paragraph three. If it's, let's see, incident, accident, competition, um, competition would be like the main part of the, let's say it's a cricket match. So you'd have the beginning when, there's a coin toss and who bats first and on all those things. The main part of it would be the bulk of the match itself and any noteworthy things that happen. And then at the end, you would have, a declaration of scores and who won. That would be in paragraph four. So there are ways that you can identify what goes into paragraph three. And that's the first step of being able to give a solid, effective paragraph three. The next thing that's absolutely important for making sure the paragraph three is effective is being able to give details. Now, many times students struggle with what to write because they think of things with opinions and generalizations. And the way to really get the quality of formal tone and so on that you want for a report is to go to the details and be as objective as possible with the details. So I'll give an example, and this is an example that came up in the SEA Peace Build Approach group over the long weekend. Yeah, teachers don't sleep. Teachers always thinking about work and teaching, right? Yeah, we don't take weekends off. Sometimes not even holidays. So I'm looking for right. So in that group, the question was raised about writing a report on an attempted robbery and whether or not the way the prompt was phrased would lead students astray in terms of, getting them to lean into, um, narratives and narrative style writing. But the way I look at it is that I'm looking for my comment so that I can share with you some of the thoughts that I'd shared in the discussion. There's a long discussion. So if you're in SEA Peacefield Approach, go find that thread. It's about write a report about an attempted robbery that took place at your school. That's the prompt. And there's a discussion about the prompt. And like I said, if you're in SEA Peaceful Approach, go look for that thread, read through the thread, because it's a good discussion to help you understand some details about report prompts and how to protect your child with the report writing prompts. Because not all report writing prompts are created equal. Some of them might give students wonderful and awesome ideas to write stories, but then they're asked to write a report. So being able to create the strategies that are necessary to stick to the report writing format, that's really where you want to to get to. So you want to look at let's see, the whole objective nature of it. And I think getting your students or your child to recognize that it doesn't matter what the report prompt says in terms of the context, they are writing a report. So making that clear and crystal clear, that distinction about what a report really is supposed to be and what you do in a report, that makes a huge difference in terms of how a child is going to respond. The minute they hear report, it shouldn't matter what wording the prompt gives. They should be conditioned to think report, formal language, structure. End of story. And one of the ways to do that is, I know we're working on paragraph 3, right? I'm going to circle back to it, but all of this is important because it ties in. Um, the idea is that you want to focus on the details, and you want to focus on the details in terms of practical action and not what you think. So in a case of, you don't want to talk about, people responding angrily. What does that even look like? Go to the details. you know Slammed on the desk, kicked the garbage bin, shoved somebody. These are things that we can observe, and these are objective, factual details. So, regardless of what the prompt is, once it's a report, if a student has that skill of getting to the details and doing this step by step, what did they see? What did they hear? Without opinion. So I didn't hear a loud noise. I heard a noise. We're trying to stay away from the opinions. And I heard this noise, and the noise made my classmates scream. And then somebody said, "Whoa, that's a loud noise." We can do things like that. But then you would say, then my classmate said that the noise was louder than they've ever heard before. Reported speech. You get that in there to add to the details. But the opinion and the generalization, that is where many students get stuck, and they say, "Miss, I don't know what to write." Okay, it's a bullying situation. Well, the bully beat up the boy, and one sentence and we're done. Okay, what does that mean? Well, Missy hit him. Okay, where? And so you guide students through an exploration of heading down to the details. And that's what we're doing now. That is why we are practicing. That is why we are doing all of these practice tests and discussions and all these things, because you want students to see beyond the obvious and go directly to the details. And once students can get to that point, getting to the details, and you tell them that you need to get like 3 to 5 actions in those details, and they practice that, they'll never run out of things to add, because then they will constantly be looking for the details. And that's where you want to focus. So the analyzing the prompt, yes, you absolutely have to do that because you need to answer three questions. You need to answer what type of report it is so you know how to organize your thoughts. You need to answer whether the prompt suggests that you are involved or not. So you would determine whether you're going to be responding with first person or third person. And then you want to find out what the main situation is so that you drop your main situation into paragraph 3 and then you fill out the report around it, and then you know what to summarize to put in the introduction summary, which is paragraph 1. So identifying the main situation is key to really structuring and organizing your ideas as well when you're responding to a report. And so students need to be able to recognize what that main situation is. And after they recognize what the main situation is, they're able to develop the report effectively, and you have the strong organization. And then the next step from that would be giving sufficient details. That's a big deal with the report writing, giving sufficient details. And the way to get to those sufficient details is to think about what do I observe, not what do I see, because what do I see limits to visual imagery. And you can probably add in movement and different things to that, but it really is kind of stuck to that. It does not include smell, it does not include what you heard, it does not include what you touched or anything like that. So you want to focus on observation. And I'll give you a little hint here, just like a um in brackets. So imagine open brackets now. I'm doing air punctuation, right? So we open in brackets now. Observation and details work wonders for both reports and narratives. Details help you flesh out the information in the report, and details help you give that vivid imagery for narratives. So you need to understand details for both. And this is why I'm dealing with them separately, but this is why I recommend really getting students keen on observations and details. And one of the coolest ways to do that, and the more fun ways for students, would be, oh gosh, I forgot what it's called. Those activities where you have a photo and the hidden objects, right? That's it. So those hidden objects games help with observation. And so that is an awesome way to get students really developing their sense of observation. And so after doing a few of those, you can have them do that regularly. It's lots of fun. See how many they get and make them more challenging and more challenging. And then bring it into real life where you ask them, what did you observe in this situation? What did you see, hear, smell, taste, touch? And have them bring it into their own experience. So it comes off the page into the experience. And this is how you build critical thinking in students. It's not as difficult as many people kind of make it out to be, and it could be a whole lot of fun, which I think this is. So now we're closing bracket. Yeah, that was like a whole dissertation in a bracket, but that's just me adding in a plug there for what you can do as a parent to encourage learning, encourage fun in learning, and help your child develop the skills that they need. So, all right, so where were we? So we're back to paragraph 3, and we're looking at details. So back to the bullying incident. I know I'm picking on that a lot, but it's an easy one to give details. Um, so the bully took the person by their neck, hoisted them up against the wall, punched them in the stomach, shoved them to the ground, and they fell into the drain, went through the pockets, took out the money, and then walked away laughing. These are things that you could see, and these are the details. So, the bully roughed him up and took his money. That's a generalization, and including some opinion, the roughing up part. go to the details. Let the reader see, hear, smell, taste, touch what actually happened. And of course, during all of this, what you're doing is making decisions about which details are important. So, yes, you're going into all the details, um, but you don't have to give all of the details. So, let's say, the bully smelled like cigarettes. Maybe the bully was smoking at the back of the school, and the child confronted, yeah, it happens. I know we're talking primary school, and that might sound like a stretch, but it happens. Children are curious, and if they have access to the materials, then so bully could have smelled like cigarettes, but that has nothing to do with the fact that he or she, um, you know, accosted another child and, did some bodily harm. So you leave that out. You don't have to put in all of the details, but you need to observe them so that you can select which ones are more effective for the purpose of the report. So that's what I really want to share with you when it comes to the report writing of paragraph 3. Make sure that the main situation is accurately identified. Make sure that students are aware of details that could go into the description of that main situation, and you want 3 to 5. If you could get more than that, then that is awesome, but you want to keep the report as concise as possible. So you only want the main details that impact the outcome so that readers could see how things are going, right? And so that's what you do. You get to the details, and that's how you know what to write because you're following that 5 paragraph format. And just in case you're wondering, okay, how do I get to those details? How do I know what kind of information and all those things? um I am going to be remiss if I don't share with you that you can get access 5 reports challenge. Um, WhatsApp me at 717-4993 and let me know that you want to get a copy and I'd share it with you. So for those of you who are um, already in possession of a copy, what you're doing for this week, because remember, we're following along and we're using the resources to really get the most out of the experience and maximize on the lives, right? So, what you want to do is go through the reports because in each of their booklets, it's a digital series. So, you get a digital booklet on an incident report, accident, competition, event, activity, and natural disaster. You get a sample report in each of them. So what you want to do is to go through the sample reports, pay attention to the paragraph 3, each of the different paragraph 3s, and is it paragraphs 3? Sorry, I'm editing my grammar while I'm speaking. It doesn't matter which one it is. You understand what I mean, right? So you're going to the paragraph 3 and you're looking at the details that were given and how those details are given. So you're checking transitions, you're checking the length of sentences, you're checking the formal tone of them, and you're discussing it. What worked, what didn't work, because, not all the reports are perfect. Some of them might have challenges that you might identify that I didn't notice when they were put together. And that's fine. I might go back now and see something that I think, oh crap, did I actually put that in it? So the reports aren't perfect, but they're meant for you to go through this process, right? So look at the paragraph 3, identify the elements, and then look at what is different between the incident, accident, competition, etc., different types of reports. And to guide you in that um, 5 reports challenge booklet, in those booklets, at the beginning of each booklet that focuses on a certain type of report, there's a paragraph by paragraph breakdown that gives you suggestions on the kind of details that you would put into each paragraph. So you want to study that as well. So you're getting the 5 booklets out and you're looking at the sample reports, paragraph 3. I think one of the reports has like 6 paragraphs. So you'd probably look at 3 and 4, but you're looking to see what is the main situation. Why, and you're asking your child, why is this the main situation? What makes it the main situation? Because you really want to get them clear on that. And then you're going through the suggested breakdown of what makes the main situation at the beginning of each of those booklets. And then from there, what you're doing is choosing one of the prompts. Well, in fact, you could go through all 3 prompts and identify the main situations. Then you, and each report booklet, each type of report booklet has 3 prompts. So altogether that would be, but 3 6s are 18 prompts that you can work with. Um, and so you can identify for incident reports what likely is going to be the main situation. For accident reports, what is likely to be the main situation. And so you're looking at what constitutes the main situation, how do you word it? How do you, what kind of transitions can you use? What sort of sentence structure are you using? What sort of grammar and so on? And then you're also going to be looking at the vocabulary. There's a booklet on vocabulary in the series, so you're checking that booklet to see what formal words can and would benefit you to use in that section of the report. And depending on the prompt, you can come up with your own, because remember, the context makes a difference to with the kind of vocabulary that you use. So you're going to go through that vocabulary booklet as well. So I usually don't always go to the usually don't always well. Sorry, I self-edit. I'm doing a lot of that today. Um I haven't been in the practice of like referencing the booklets as much, but it occurred to me that for those of you who have the booklets, being able to use them effectively is going to be quite useful. So, what I'm sharing now really is that idea of how to use the booklets effectively. So if you don't have a copy, WhatsApp me to get yourself a copy. For the report writing booklets, it's $135. Once the payment clears on my account, I email them to you, and then you can follow along with the lives, and I will guide you each with how to use the booklets effectively, right? Um, and so you want to set aside, I would say, like 4 30-minute sessions, because um in this week, we're not writing complete reports yet, right? We're really just focusing on paragraph 3 and getting those details right, so that I think half an hour should be sufficient. So 4 of those, where you analyze prompts, look at the vocabulary, you review what makes the main situation, and then you're looking at the grammar and the spelling and so on, and then you're going to have the child write the paragraph 3. Now, of course, to get to the paragraph 3, you might want to have them write the first 2 paragraphs as well. If you've been following along with the lives and doing the activities, they should already have paragraph 1 and 2 for other reports. So now you're continuing with that. You're going back to those and continuing by adding in the paragraph 3, right? And that is going to help you study, focus, get into details for this week, really getting into the paragraph 3 for report writing. All right. So that I think that's it for the report writing segment, and that should work quite nicely to help you organize yourself with the, um, with studying report writing. Now let's move on to the narrative writing, and I actually have something I share with to share with you. This is what I use when I am teaching my students. So I'm making it kind of public here. And I'll tell you what I do to get into details with we're dealing with dialogue with the narratives. Um, So let me share my screen so you could see that. Right, so we're getting into, there we go. I hope everything is big enough. So you could, take a screenshot, pause the video when you go back to the recording to see what this is. These are the elements of dialogue. And what I really, really want to make absolutely clear, three things when it comes to dialogue. The definition of dialogue is a conversation between two or more people. That does not include characters speaking to themselves or thinking things to themselves in their own minds, right? Um, and I have to, you know what? Let me stop sharing for a little bit so you can see my face. Dialogue is conversation between two or more people, and that does not include characters speaking to themselves out loud, even, or thinking things to themselves. That is not considered dialogue. So, ideally, when you include dialogue in a narrative, you want to have a conversation with at least two people talking to each other. So, one person speaks, one person gives a response. That is where you have dialogue. So, what I'm showing you here is some details about a conversation. Now, does that mean that characters should not speak to themselves or speak out loud or think things? Please continue doing that. That helps a lot in terms of making readers feel like they understand what's happening with the character. So, yeah, have characters speak out loud, talk to nobody in particular, things, voices echoing and all of that. That is fine. Have characters think to themselves, but just to be absolutely clear that that's not dialogue. It's considered speech and it is part of narrative writing. So it's not something to avoid, but you still want to make sure that your story has an opportunity to include dialogue. This is why I tell students it's always a good idea to have at least two people as characters in the story. It's absolutely perfectly fine to write a story with one person alone. I'm not saying that that is, wrong. We have lots of awesome stories like that. However, remember this is an exam, and in the exam, the examiners are looking to see how students understand the use of dialogue and how they can include it into their stories. So we're not just writing a story for writing a story's sake. We are writing a story to demonstrate skill with certain things. And one of those certain things happens to be dialogue. So, what you're paying attention to is that you need a conversation. All right? Excuse me. So you need a conversation. So you need two people to say things to each other. And one of the skills with writing dialogue that takes dialogue to the next level is the response. So it's not just enough for somebody to say things out loud and then the person who answers they're saying things out loud themselves. That's like, sometimes you're watching movies and you wonder who are these people talking to? Are they actually talking to themselves? Or are they just regurgitating lines that they learned or they rehearsed? It feels like that sometimes, and nobody likes those kinds of stories because it doesn't feel real. Your dialogue has to be an interaction and a meaningful interaction that actually adds something to the story. Now there are different elements to it, and when I go through it with my students, we go through this in detail, and this is the standard 4 group. We go through this in detail, so I show them what it is, how to do it, and we practice it and have a lot of fun. We do what do you call it? Voiceovers. It's absolutely hilarious. I have a couple of videos that I use over and over, and I will be using those videos for a long time until I find others that are better, but you'd be surprised. But anyway, so the thing is, we know dialogue needs quotation marks. That's how we set off the speech. So the speech is what the characters are saying. Then we have something called a dialogue tag, which is, who is speaking and how they are speaking, right? And when I say how they are speaking, I mean, like, are they shouting? Are they whispering? Is it just a statement? So they said, is it a question? So they asked, that kind of thing. That would be the dialogue tag. So, who is speaking and how, right? And that's what the tag is and what it does. Then we have something called an action beat, right? And this is where you can get some real impact with dialogue. And so students who learn how to do this effectively really add a whole other dimension to the dialogue. The action beat is an action, thought, or description, and it really kind of identifies what is happening with the speaker. So it's not so much what's happening with the listeners, but more so what's happening with the speaker. So, in this case, Jack stood over the boy. So Jack is speaking, and his action is to stand over the person. Because, I mean, okay, this is part of a story. So what was happening is that the boy was reading a book, and, the boy asked Jack something, and then Jack responded, but he kind of walked up to him and stood over him looking at him reading the book while the boy was sitting, Jack is standing. So there's a context here that's not on screen, but the main thing to remember is that this action beat um, allows the writer to add in description so that dialogue does not just be he said, she said, he said, she said. That makes it kind of boring. So you can actually use the action beat position to help readers understand what's happening while the dialogue is taking place. Because when characters are speaking, readers are focusing on the words, and then the action that's happening around is going to be lost. So, it's paused temporarily. Let me put it that way. It's paused temporarily. So we have that pause, but then you can sort of move a little bit forward with the action by using the action beat to add in descriptions, setting descriptions, character descriptions, descriptions of actions, moving the plot forward. All sorts of different things can be done with the action beat. And this is where you really get to level up your dialogue. So practicing this is what you want to pay attention to this week. So this week you're focusing on dialogue. We kind of, we paused the look at, we covered introductions, we covered beginnings, and so now the story is starting to get good. So we're going to step back a little bit to look at this skill of writing dialogue so that, you could put dialogue in the introduction, you can put dialogue anywhere in a story. What does it add to the story is what your main question should be. And how is it helping the story feel more interesting to readers? And so, take this week to, look into details of dialogue and how you can, um, include dialogue in stories. So I'm going to stop sharing now because I want to check on something. There's something else that I might be able to share. But in any case, looking at the time, I probably would not get around to sharing this. But in the let's see, I'm checking. There isn't a booklet specifically on dialogue in the seven stories challenge. And I think when I revise the, well, I didn't include it actually because it's going to go into the text when I'm finished with it. But I do have, just like with the narrative, with the reports, you can get the seven stories challenge um, that gives you information on well, stories in general. So I was just checking to see if this series had a specific booklet on dialogue. It doesn't. However, just like with the report challenge, you have sample stories, and in the sample stories, dialogue is used. So you get to see how dialogue is used effectively in the essay style narrative. Dialogue in novels and so on might be way more lengthy and more involved than for the essay style story. So you really want to see what dialogue looks like in a flash fiction, and so you have those examples, and there is a section on vivid descriptions which would help you with introducing those descriptions within the action beat. So, okay, so I think yes. So for 2025, I'm going to do a revised edition of these booklets, and I'll probably add in dialogue here. But certainly, I think what you need to know about dialogue is that you need a conversation. So please have at least one other person. The conversation has to be meaningful and related to what's going on in the story, as well as you have the dialogue tag, you have the action beat. Use both. You don't just want, one action beats only. It'll be too much. You don't want tags only. That'll not be enough. So you want to, mix it up a little bit and have both there. So this week, understand what dialogue is. If you have the booklets, go through all the stories, identify the dialogue, look at the formatting of the dialogue, look at how the dialogue is introduced, how it is eased into the story, eased out, and that's what you really want to pay attention to. You can give your child just a couple situations on, what sort of dialogue they would come up with for the different kinds of stories. And in each of these story booklets in the narrative series, you have, just like with the reports, you have sample prompts, and in this one, you have realistic fiction, fantasy, action and adventure, mysteries, science fiction, thriller and suspense, folklore, and fairy tales. So you actually have seven sample stories, and therefore, in each booklet, you have three prompts. So that's seven threes are 21 prompts. And you can choose a few and have your child, okay, in the heat of the situation, any point in the situation, what would characters say to each other? How would that look in a dialogue? What kind of dialogue would you add in here? Have them discuss it and describe it and practice working on the dialogue. So that's what you're working on this week. And again, we're not writing full stories, so you don't need a full 50 minutes to an hour to do the activity. You want to set aside like 30 minutes, four times for the week. So we're going Tuesday to Tuesday. All right. Three times during the week, couple times on the weekend. If you could do more, that's cool. But you want to do like a minimum of 3 to 4 times so that you can get that practice with dialogue completed. Make sure your child understand the rules and guidelines of dialogue, quotation marks, where the punctuation goes, and so on. And again, this is something that I do with my standard fours. The standard fives, I give them what you call like handouts. And so that is something that can be done. And what I could probably do, I'm looking for a pen that I could write this down. I'm going to package the handouts that I have on dialogue so that if you wanted to get a copy on dialogue, if dialogue specifically is something that your child is having challenges with, um, you can get more details. So that handout will include like rules, examples, practice activities, And so yeah, it'll be kind of like the precursor to what to that document that I'm going to add in um to the series when I revise it. But yeah, so you'd have that information as well, and so I'll let you know. Um, yeah, I have the documents already created, so it's really just to package it properly, and I'll put it. I'll let you know. I have to figure out, how much and all of that, but I'll do that soon. So I'll make that available. If it is you want to have something to work on with dialogue, then I could create that resource for you. So all right, so that's it with the narratives. And like I said, dialogue, you must have it if you want to get that 18 to 20 range because it's one of the requirements of the exam. Remember, it's a conversation, so focus on that. And then you want to be able to practice. Yeah, that's just it. Just practice so that the dialogue, when it comes to writing, you could learn all the skills, but you do need to see what it looks like so you know what you're doing and then practice with the dialogue. Okay, let's see. The last thing that I want to share with you today, it is 11:57. Well, 58. I'll probably take 10 minutes to do this. This is with the comprehension. I'm making a note of this, right? With the comprehension, we're talking graphics because one of the parents who messaged me and asked about comprehension support specifically mentioned dealing with graphics and how to really understand graphics. Um, the thing with graphics is that, many times we look at graphics as, whoops, I just realized I didn't complete my number. It's WhatsApp 717. I forgot it's three. All right. Yeah, with graphics, what happens is that we believe that because there are a lot of words in the graphic and because it's a comprehension, what we're really paying attention to is the wording. And we're looking at the wording of the questions and all these things. But a graphic is actually an interpretation of visual elements. And that's the first place you need to begin when you're thinking about, um, how to respond to graphics, right? And I'm going to put that, right? Interpretation of visual elements. And this is something that I teach my standard threes when we work on visual imagery. So we go through all the different aspects of visual imagery and then we apply that to a comprehension context. So we talk about all the different types of graphics. So there are billboards, there are invitations, there are posters, you have flyers, you have like index, you have indexes. You know what I mean? That's like the index in the book, and then you have the table of contents that has some information. Then you have the um what's another one? You have like a flow chart. All of these things, while many of them use words, the words are not formatted in complete sentences. So it's not really about putting all the parts of it together to understand the meaning of a sentence. Graphics use visual representations of the information so that you can understand at a glance certain details. So the things that are important in a graphic, you're looking at placement, size. I know color is a big one in the real world, but we know those SEA exams not coming in color. So it's worth mentioning and understanding because, of course, we're not just going for the exam, we're going for general, knowledge and being able to use it, but it's not going to apply in the exam. So you're looking at size, placement, where are things located, um, how large the words are, how small. You're also looking at, are there any objects or representations like arrows and images and so on. How do those things relate to the message that the graphic is sharing? And then we also talk about purpose. Graphics are done for a reason. So you have to mention purpose with graphic as well. So it's a whole lot of stepping back and looking at things in general, and then you go into the details. Um, and depending on the type of graphic it is, you will expect to have certain types of details. So that is something that you would want to pay attention to. If it's a table of contents, what is it going to tell you? Which chapter comes first, which chapter comes next, what page number to go to get what. Sometimes in the table of contents, you can have like headings and subheadings. In an index, it'll tell you what page to go to find a particular concept. With a flow chart, it gives you like process, what happens first, what happens next. And sometimes you might have arrows or, it's arranged in a particular way. With flyers and so on, what's the purpose? Are we inviting you to something? Are we informing you of an event? Are we, really just wanting to encourage you to attend something? And so, what is the purpose of the graphic? And then you go into the details and to the questions. So, students being able to understand the different aspects of the graphic and how it contributes to sharing information, then they would be better able to actually look at a graphic and be able to pull out information. So, for example, if it's a ticket, then what kind of information are you going to be looking for? We will get price, venue, what is the event, um, maybe a seat number, maybe, so that there's specific things. If it's a movie poster, there are specific things to look for. The name of the movie, the main actors and actresses, where it's going to be showing, when it's opening, director information, what it's about is going to communicate something. If it's a certain type of story, the graphic is going to look a certain way. If it's a horror, it'll look very different from if it's an action and adventure, and you get that kind of information in a graphic. If it's like a flyer for, I think one of the past papers had like a flyer for an agriculture expo for children. And so, there were certain images, and if it's like a flyer, what kind of information are you expecting? You're expecting what it's about, who it's for, and you want enticing images to encourage people to stop and pay attention to the flyer, and you want contact information, if it is an event that you're being encouraged to participate in. So those are the details that you're scanning for. And because it's a graphic, those details are going to be represented not in sentences, and they're not all going to be in one place. However, flyers tend to have information ordered and organized in certain ways. So you get the attention, you give a header, then you have text that gives content information, then you have contact information usually at the bottom. So, or or to one side. And you can get flyers, in the newspapers, when you go to places like the public library, supermarkets would have posters and stuff up, and you can engage your child. What do you notice? Where is the information located? And so they get into the habit of recognizing this is a visual representation of something, and I have to look for visual cues to find the information. And information is typically located in the same general location. So for tickets, there, you would have the ticket number. Ticket numbers don't come, big and bold in the middle. Ticket numbers generally go to the bottom or to the top. They usually have the corners and so on. So there are typical locations for visual representations of certain elements of whatever type of graphic you're working with. And that is what you want to focus on. So you want to pay attention to the different types of graphics that your child might encounter, and then look at what are the elements of these. And so that's where you want to begin. And a really good place to start if you're studying graphics is with the SEA past papers. What I did was to group the past papers into sections so that I have a document with the graphics only from 2019 to 2023. So you can get a document with all the different graphics, what are the questions. And so I went through the questions and provided possible answers with explanations about where you can get the information and why certain answers are the way they are. And so you can get that. So if you don't already have a copy, you can WhatsApp me to get a copy, and then you'd be able to like do a study on graphics. Right, so this would be the ELA past paper solutions. And yeah, so you can do a study and check in. And of course, if there's anything in any of these that you're not quite sure of, or you want additional information on, once you've made a purchase from me, you can feel free to message me and ask, and I'll be more than happy to help you understand it. And it would also help me revise the documents and the solutions that I provide to know, okay, if I didn't answer it properly the first time, I'll adjust it and make sure that you have the answers that you need. So when it comes to graphics, just to wrap up, remember that graphics are interpretation of visual elements. So even though words are sometimes used, a word is not going to be just a word for the detail of the word. The size, whether it's bold, the placement of it influences the importance and what the creator of the graphic is trying to share. So these are the kinds of things that you would want to pay attention to when it comes to graphics. So I hope that was helpful. Like I said, if you have any questions, message me. If you want to kind of like do a study of the SCA exams, there are 5 exams grouped with solutions available that you can check me for. Um, and you'd be able to get some information on that. So 10 minutes past 12, a bit longer, but I did give a little story at the beginning with this one. If you didn't get a chance to check in, if you want to hear that story, you can check the video, check the replay, the recording. I had a really interesting, lovely, lovely, lovely experience this weekend meeting a parent whose kids did SCA this year, who used to follow the lives. So I thought it was really interesting to share. So thank you for those of you who were able to kind of like stick through the live. If you're looking at the replay, thank you so much for your time. I keep saying replay, but it's a recording because I don't actually share it again, but it's recorded that you could go back and find it. Um, and let me know, what questions do you have, especially about comprehension, since we already have a schedule for the narrative writing. I didn't create a schedule for comprehension. So my answer to comprehension questions and what you're working on would be a result of um, you asking me direct questions, and I would share those answers. So make sure my number is on the screen, 717-4993 if you want to WhatsApp. You can also find me on Facebook, Shelly Ann Edwards Barron, and also SEA, The Peaceful Approach. You can ask a question there, and I would, pull from that and include in the lives as well. So that brings us to the end. We are finished with our presentation today. We're at episode 22, and I do look forward to checking in with you next week with episode 23 as we count down to SCA 2024. All right, take care. Goodbye, guys. Have a wonderful rest of today.